Around 3 hours before the execution, the 5 warlords present for the battle and 3 marine admirals moved to their positions to await Whitebeard's attack, as flashbacks of them are shown. At this time, the guards arrive to retrieve Ace and take him to the scaffold. He reaches the scaffold, where the marines assemble for Whitebeard's assault. Meanwhile, Luffy's ship approaches the gates of justice, blocking his path through Marineford. After Ace finally reaches the execution platform, Sengoku reveals to the world via transponder snail that Ace's mother is Portegas de Rouge. And he took his mother's surname to become a pirate himself. He also reveals that Ace is the son of the pirate king, Gold Roger, much to the horror of Ace, the marines and the reporters. While the marines are waiting for Whitebeard's assault and Ace's execution, Garp has a flashback of months before Roger was executed, where he reveals that he is having a child and told Garp to look over him. The marines search for any people who are connected to Roger, and Ace's mother keeps the child inside her womb months after his execution. However, after Rouge gives birth to Ace, she dies of exhaustion. Soon after, Ace is raised by Garp and Deiden. During Sengoku's execution speech, he receives word that the gates of justice has been opened without an order, allowing Luffy's ship to pass through. After Whitebeard's fleet come for the assault, the Moby Dick appears from underwater in front of the execution platform. Whitebeard reveals his devil fruit powers in front of the marines, as he and Ace's past are shown. Ace was the captain of the Spade Pirates and confronted Jimby to meet Whitebeard to bring him down. He attempted to kill him to no avail, but Whitebeard welcomed him and allowed Ace to become division commander. However, when Blackbeard turned against the crew and killed Thatch, Ace left Whitebeard on a mission to capture him. Whitebeard and his allies declare to the marines and the warlords their determination to rescue Ace while Luffy and his group continue to reach Marineford. A tsunami approaches on both sides as a result of Whitebeard's Tremor fruit abilities. However, Ikiji stops the 2 waves with his Ice power. The Whitebeard division commanders leap into action, as do the vice admirals, and soon after Mihawk steps up and launches a large slash attack towards Whitebeard. Jozu manages to withstand his slash with his devil fruit power, which turns his body into diamond. Kizaru attempts to attack Whitebeard, but Marco blocks the attack by turning into a phoenix with his devil fruit and knocks him back. Jozu digs out a chunk of ice and tosses it toward the marines, but Akainu melts it with his magma-based devil fruit. He then counterattacks with his power, sinking one of the ships, but Whitebeard effortlessly extinguishes them. While the marines and the Whitebeard pirates fight on the ice, Kobe and Helmeppo start becoming scared, as many marines more powerful than them have been taken down easily. Little Oars Jr., a descendant of the original, steps forward to force his way through the marine defenses. He forces his way into the plaza, overturning one of the marine ships and defeating the giant unit, enabling the Whitebeard pirates to advance. He continues despite Ace's protests that he is too large of a target and recalls the time Ace made him a hat that protected him from the weather. Kuma blasts Oars with Ursus Shock, Doflamingo cuts off his leg, and Moria impales him with Spiky Shadow Lizard, causing him to collapse while trying to reach out to Ace. Oars Jr. falls down and Vice Admiral Rance launched a sneak attack at Whitebeard, but is easily defeated by a Quake Punch before he then orders his soldiers to storm the plaza. Kobe and Helmeppo run inside Marineford to escape the battle, but witness Akainu kill a marine for doing so. They then witness something falling from the sky, which happens to be Luffy and the escaped prisoners from Impel Down. In a flashback, the tsunami Whitebeard created rushes toward Luffy's marine ship. They attempt to ride the wave, but become stuck on the top when Ikiji freezes it. After hearing a report that Ace's execution will happen early, they attempt to break free, but fall into the hole Jozu created. Luffy checks to see that Ace is still alive, then stops Crocodile from attacking Whitebeard. Whitebeard notices that he has Shanks' hat, and Luffy, undaunted by Whitebeard's power or reputation, tells him that he will rescue Ace and become king of the pirates. He then charges forward to save Ace, fighting off the marines in the way. Admiral Kizaru attacks him with a beam of light, but Ivankov saves him, only to be attacked by Kuma, while Luffy barely escapes from Hina using Gear Second. Elsewhere, the Whitebeard pirates are having difficulty getting past the vice admirals, and Squard attempts to sneak past, only to encounter someone. Moria attacks with a group of zombies, halting Luffy's progress, while marine reinforcements enter. Ace yells that Luffy must not try to save him, and that he cannot bear to be saved by a weakling, while actually not wanting Luffy to die. However, the latter refused to listen. As Jinbe arrives, defeating Moria's zombies with a blast, Luffy defeats a giant officer with Gear 3rd, and Sengoku reveals to the Marines that Luffy is the son of Dragon. Ace is still upset that everyone are trying to save him, but decides to accept whether he lives or dies. Whitebeard tricks Buggy into helping him, noting that despite being weak, he has powerful followers who could pose a threat. He then orders the ships under his command to attack the Marines. Jinbe fights with Moria and defeats him while Smoker attacks Luffy and manages to pin him down, but Hancock in anger, manages to kick him despite his Logia powers with her haki. Ivankov encounters Kuma, saying they knew each other. However, Doflamingo reveals to Ivankov that the Kuma he knew is dead, slowly been modified into a pacifista over time. And few days ago, had his brain replaced, completely losing his personality and free will in the process. Luffy receives the key to Ace's handcuffs from Hancock, who then fantasizes about a wedding ceremony, and he continues to advance up the battlefield. Crocodile tries to reach Whitebeard, but is assaulted by Jozu, who is then halted by Doflamingo. Mihawk begins attacking Luffy while Hancock and Ivankov are occupied, easily defeating two of the newcomers who arrive to assist him and knocking Jinbe aside. Luffy escapes by using Buggy as a human shield, and 5th Division leader Vista arrives to fight Hawkeye. Sengoku orders that the links to the transponder snails be cut so that the world will only know that the Marines won, and an army of pacifistas, led by Sentomaru, attacks the Whitebeard pirates from behind. Their plan is not fully effective because of Whitebeard's attacking the ships at the sides. The Marines withdraw to the plaza, intending to raise the fortification wall and execute Ace before finishing off the Whitebeard pirates, and Luffy and the division leaders rush to reach Ace before then. Sengoku orders to stop broadcasting, but the one snail Buggy stole continues to broadcast images of the war as he tries to make himself famous. Squard, one of Whitebeard's pirate allies who had been missing for some time, stabs him through the chest with his sword. This shocks the Whitebeard pirates, as does his statement that Whitebeard agreed to sacrifice his allies to save Ace. As the pirates question him and become demoralized, the Marines gain the upper hand and Akiji freezes Buggy, cutting the footage. Whitebeard chastises Squard for falling for the Marines' lies, but forgives him. He then opens a path for his men to escape, telling them to follow him if they are prepared to give their lives. As their faith in him is restored, Whitebeard jumps into the fray, determined to save Ace even if he dies doing so. The Marines activate walls to block his path, but is stopped by the ice. Meanwhile, Luffy and his allies charge to the execution platform and the Marines attack them to no avail. Whitebeard confronts John Giant, and defeats him with a punch to the chest while Akainu uses his meteor volcano attack to melt the ice, in an attempt to prevent Whitebeard's pirates from reaching Ace, much to Luffy's horror. This move destroys the Whitebeard pirates' ships, dropping them into boiling water, enabling the cannons on the wall to bombard them while the pacifistas block the way out. The hole left open by Little Oars Jr.'s body before he then regains consciousness, and Jinbe launches Luffy over the wall, before he begins to fight the three admirals as Whitebeard decides to play his trump card. Luffy attempts to slip past, but Kizaru easily catches up to him and knocks him to the ground. The executioners prepare to execute Ace, but Crocodile intervenes, saying he can kill Whitebeard later and he does not want the Marines to win. Akiji attacks Luffy, but Marco knocks him away before he can finish him off as Mr. 3 hides in the passageways below Marineford, having managed to escape the freezing. Whitebeard commands the submerged paddle ship to surface, and Oars propels it into the plaza with the pirates on board. As the forces reach the plaza, Sengoku and Garp prepare to fight them. Luffy comes under attack from 2 vice admirals and Kizaru, then collapses from his injuries and exhaustion as Whitebeard admires his persistence. The battle continues as Akainu engages him and the allied pirates arrive to help Whitebeard's pirates, and the pacifistas fight them. Marco flies up to rescue, but Garp knocks him back and declares that anyone trying to rescue Ace will need to kill him first. As Ace thinks back to his childhood, when he fought with anyone who spoke ill of Roger, and wondering if he should ever have been born, he's touched by everyone fighting for him and realizes that he wants to live. Whitebeard doubles over in pain while fighting Akainu, enabling the latter to severely injure him and distracting Marco and Jozu long enough for them to be injured by Kizaru and Akiji. Luffy asks for Ivankov to give him tension hormones to enable him to fight again and save Ace. But Ivankov refuses, saying that it will likely kill him. He responds by saying that he would rather die than fail to save Ace, causing Ivankov to comply, restoring Luffy's energy. Kobe, despite being afraid earlier in Helmeppo's advice to stay out now that the Marines are almost certain to win, goes out to fight. He tries to stop Luffy, but gets defeated instantly. Luffy encounters more pacifistas, but Hancock stands in their way to allow him to advance, and just as the executioners try to go for Ace, he incapacitates them with his Haki of the Supreme King. The Marines move to eliminate him, seeing the potential threat he poses, and Whitebeard orders his men to back him up, wanting to see what he will bring in the future. Crocodile and Hancock attack Luffy's enemies as he advances toward the scaffold, while Buggy tries to thaw out the transponder snail in order to continue broadcasting to the world. Inazuma show up and make a bridge for Luffy to use, but Garp moves out to fight him, saying that he is a Marine and Luffy is a pirate. As they are face to face, Garp thinks back to when he trained him so that he could become a Marine and stay on the right path. They both throw punches at each other, but Garp hesitates and Luffy knocks him off the bridge and reaches Ace. Just then, Kizaru destroys his ki with a beam of light and Sengoku transforms into a giant golden Buddha. Mr. 3, disguised as an executioner, uses his powers to create a copy of the key and unlock Ace's shackles as the platform collapses and the Marines open fire on them. But Ace, now released, uses his flame powers to protect Luffy and Mr. 3 from the barrage. The brothers fight off the Marines as the Whitebeard pirates move to escape, but Akainu and Akiji are determined to prevent them from leaving. Squard attempts to hold off the Marines to allow their escape and atone for stabbing the old man. Whitebeard, however, decides to remain behind, not wanting any of his crew to die for him, stating that he is a remnant of the old era and that the time has come for a new one to arrive. His final order leaves his pirates distraught as they leave Marineford for the New World. Meanwhile, Buggy uses the transponder snail and does a public broadcast on Shabati, angering witnesses. When Akainu mocks Whitebeard, saying that he will not surpass Gold Roger, Ace is provoked. Despite his crew's objections, he confronts him, but is incapacitated and his Vivre card is exposed as Akainu reveals that his magma powers can extinguish fire. Luffy tries to get Ace's Vivre card and Akainu launches a powerful attack at him. But Ace jumps in the way at the last second to shield his brother from the attack, leaving Luffy who watches in horror as Ace's Vivre card is finally burned up with a hole in his chest. Akainu tries to attack Ace again, but Jinbe blocks it, and Marco arrives with Vista to assist him. Garp is angered by Akainu's actions, but Sengoku holds him down. Ace apologizes to Luffy for not letting him to be rescued properly and for not being able to see him achieve his dream. He tells Luffy that he wanted to know whether someone like him deserved to be born, and before he dies, Ace thanks Luffy, Whitebeard, and his crewmates for loving him in spite of who he is. His final breath and death shatters Luffy's spirit and he screams in torment as he becomes completely incapacitated. Akainu attempts to kill him, but Marco fight back while Jinbe flees with him. Enraged at the death of Ace, Whitebeard ruthlessly attacks Akainu and creates a massive earthquake that severely damages Marine headquarters and leaves him isolated from his men. Soon after, the Blackbeard pirates, having acquired several notorious criminals from the lowest level of Impel Down, make their appearance. Blackbeard reveals that the entire reason he wanted to become one of the 7 warlords of the sea was to gain access to Impel Down, and that he gained entrance by having Lafitte hypnotize the Marines to admit all Marine ships, which also enabled Luffy's to gain entry. Whitebeard attacks him to avenge Thatch, but he uses his dark powers to cancel it out and is attacked and mortally wounded by the rest of the crew. Whitebeard tells him that he will not be the one to find One Piece, and reveals that Ace may have died, but others with the will of D have inherited Roger's will, and shout stating, "The One Piece is real." Whitebeard dies standing up, with hundreds of wounds on his body, but not a single one on his back. News of Whitebeard's death spreads across the world, and many people are excited to hear of the demise of one of the world's most powerful pirates. Akainu emerges in front of Jinbe, who refuses to hand over Luffy, as the pirates arrive to assist him while Hancock holds off the pacifistas. Meanwhile, Blackbeard throws a cloth over himself and Whitebeard's body, and after a brief moment of tension, he emerges with the ability to use his and Whitebeard's devil fruit powers. As everyone watch in horror, he declares that his era has begun, and then destroys the fortress, but Sengoku attacks him, saying that the island is a symbol of justice in the world. The Marines continue to pursue the retreating pirates, and Kobe begins hearing the combatants' voices in his head. Akainu defeats Inazuma and Iva, then chases down Jinbe and punches through his chest, severely injuring both. As the two fall to the ice below, Crocodile attacks Akainu and launches Luffy into the air, where Buggy catches him, and just as he desperately tries to escape, Trafalgar Law arrives in his submarine. Saying that Luffy will become his enemy one day, but as that is a worthwhile relationship, he will give him medical treatment. Sengoku and Garp fight Blackbeard as the Marines are determined to eliminate the fleeing pirates, and Kizaru attacks in an attempt to prevent Law from escaping with Luffy and Jinbe. Kobe, having developed the ability to sense the voices of those fighting, becomes overwhelmed by all the violence, and screams that fighting is unnecessary and only risks the lives of many soldiers who have families. Akainu tries to kill him, but red-haired Shanks arrives blocking his attack and reveals that he has come to end the war. Shanks tricks Buggy into returning Luffy's straw hat to him, noting that while he would like to see Luffy again, as it is too soon for their reunion. Law's submarine barely escapes from Akiji and Kizaru's attacks thanks to the red-haired pirates. Shanks, after a heated moment with Blackbeard, convinces the Marines and pirates to stand down by saying that fighting will only lead to more casualties, and declaring that he will fight those who still wish to do so, making all those involved comply. And the war ends. The public celebrates the end of the war around the world. Meanwhile, in Marineford, Sengoku is enraged by Blackbeard and the world government, which doesn't want to see its reputation being damaged anymore and therefore orders to withhold the news that more prisoners from Level 6 have escaped from Impel Down. In the sea, Law's submarine surfaces near a marine ship with Hancock on board and order them to call the Kuja's ship and return to Amazon Lily. As islands formerly under Whitebeard's protection fall under siege and others head for the Grand Line. The Kuja's pirate ship arrives and escorts Law and his crew to the Maiden Island. 2 weeks later, Luffy wakes up and goes berserk, and Hancock orders food to be made for him despite not having eaten anything herself in that time as to her love for him. As Luffy destroys the jungle, Jinbe discovers him in a state of depression from realizing he is not dreaming and that Ace really is dead. A flashback is shown 10 years before his journey, when Garp takes his grandson to meet Daden, along with her henchmen, and he meets Ace for the first time. As Ace walks away, Luffy begins to pursue him much to his objection, until eventually he reaches the end of the forest and finds a junkyard. Luffy runs after Ace when he steals the treasure from a bandit and meets into Sabo, a boy who lives there. After Luffy discovers the stolen treasure, he is tied up by them and screams in fear, causing Porchimi, a member of the Blue Jam pirates, to find them. They escape, but Luffy is captured and is tortured into asking where the treasure is at. Soon Sabo, realizing that Luffy would not tell Porchimi about the treasure's whereabouts, he and Ace break into their hideout. After refusing to back down, the two defeat Porchimi and Luffy is rescued. Later, Blue Jam guns down Porchimi for failing to capture the 3 children, and Daden allows Sabo to stay in with them as the 3 turn friends. The 3 invade Edge Town, located just past the Grey Terminal, and fight off several bandits. When they go to High Town, Sabo is seen by a noble, who is tricked before escaping with the others. Back at the forest, he explains to Ace and Luffy that he is the nobleman's son, and that the reason he left was because his parents trying to force themselves on him, and that his dream is to live freely on the sea, and the 3 speak their dreams, where Luffy reveals his of becoming the king of the pirates before the trio become brothers by sharing a drink of sake. To run away for Garp, who is objecting of their dreams, and the bandits, they end up building a fort in a large tree. One day on a forest, the trio find themselves being chased by a bear after a failed attempt to hunt, when a former pirate named Naguri rescues them using haki. Meanwhile, Sabo's father goes to Blue Jam and tells him that he wants his son back. While Ace and Sabo are chased by the tiger, they encounter Naguri again. The brothers build a ship for him during their training. And with their effort combined, they finally defeat the tiger and see Naguri off. Meanwhile, Blue Jam gives the crew a message to Sabo's father that they have found him. The three of them are captured by Blue Jam's crew. Sabo's father scolds Ace and Luffy for their involvement with his son and takes him back to High Town while Blue Jam forces them to take supplies to the Grey Terminal. Meanwhile, at High Town, Sabo learns of the nobles' plan to burn down Grey Terminal from his newly adopted brother Stelly. He also tells Sabo that a group of observers from the world government will arrive in Goa Kingdom in 3 days' time. Sabo fails to warn them as he is caught by his father, but after escaping once again and fails to reach the Grey Terminal, he tells Dragon about the fire and admits that he will never be free as long as he stays in High Town. Blue Jam and his crew burn down the Grey Terminal, trapping the people in Goa Kingdom and filling the Dayton family with horror. But after he discovers that he was cheated by the nobles, Blue Jam confronts Luffy and Ace about his hidden treasure. Dayton knocks Blue Jam's shot astray and confronts him before Ace face him as well while the family and Luffy flee. On a ship, Ivankov is told by Dragon that the country would be an example of how it would happen in future events. Meanwhile, in High Town, the citizens are left in horror as it burns down and Sabo decides to live his life alone as a free man and tries to escape. Only to be confronted by Saint Jalmak, a celestial dragon, who shoots at his boat. Ace reveals that they have defeated Blue Jam, before Dogra returns and tells them that Sabo has died. The next day, as they both mourn, Ace receives Sabo's letter and Luffy becomes severely upset. Ace eventually convinces Luffy to live freely without any regrets, as the letter tells him to take care of his little brother. After the death of Sabo, Ace and Luffy continue there while Dragon tells Ivankov that he has attracted too much attention and departs for Baltigo. After 7 years of intensive training, Ace departs from the Goa Kingdom to the ocean and Dayton is emotionally distraught. 3 more years pass and Luffy bids farewell to everyone as he departs on his journey too. In the present, Luffy is still upset that Ace has died and proclaims to Jinbe that he is too weak. Garp visits Dayton and the Mountain Bandits, who fights the Vice Admiral, but Makino stops her and tells her that Garp is suffering too. Meanwhile, at the New World, a funeral is held for Ace and Whitebeard as Shanks mourns the loss of his friends before he departs. At Amazon Lily, Jinbe tells Luffy not to blame Ace for his actions. Enraged, Luffy tries to fight him but is easily defeated. When Jinbe queries about what Luffy still has left, the latter tells him that he wants to see his crew. On Kurigana Island, Zoro confronts several human drills, but is stopped by Mihawk. On Birdie Kingdom, Chopper is captured by a human tribe and attempts to escape, but is stopped by the giant birds. Eventually, the tribe befriends the birds and Chopper before he receives the newspaper about Ace's fate. As does every other crew member on their respective locations. Back on Kurigana Island, Zoro tells Mihawk that Kuma teleported him, and Mihawk informs Zoro of Ace's death. On Maiden Island, Rayleigh arrives after killing a Sea King and meet Jinbe and Luffy, telling them that Law has left the island with his crew. Rayleigh gives back Luffy's straw hat and tells him that he cannot bring him back to the Shabati, as he would suffer the same fate and offer to train him. Meanwhile, at the Bowen Islands, an overweight Usopp P is sucked into the island's mouth but is rescued by Heracles, before he makes a vow that he will not abandon Luffy. Nami attempts to flee from the island by stealing a local balloon. But it crashes and she is captured by the townspeople as a traitor. After Nami bursts into tears while talking about Luffy's failure to save Ace, she flees with Herdas and is chased yet again. Meanwhile, Frankie discovers blueprints in a button, but when he pushes it, the place explodes, destroying the laboratory and seemingly killing him. Zoro tries to use Mihawk's boat to escape but is stopped by the human drills who learned how to use his techniques. On Namakura Island, the shamans mistake Brook's music scores as talismans and is captured. Meanwhile, Luffy finally makes up his mind and decides to go back to Marineford. He and Jinbe hijack a marine ship and enter using the Gates of Justice, and at the same time, on the East Blues Bridge, Robin is given a photograph and the revolutionaries offer her to meet with the leader, as she is the only survivor of O'Hara, and learns about what is going on. On Kamabaka Kingdom, Ivankov returns and Sanji confronts him before he is informed about what happened to his crew. Luffy finally arrives at Marineford and makes his way through the Marines before reaching the Ox Bell and ringing it 16 times to signify the start of the new era. He then throws a bouquet of flowers as the reporters take his pictures, along with his tattoo before he leaves. Meanwhile, the 5 elders discuss their plans to fill the 3 remaining warlord positions with powerful warriors while Sengoku resigns from his position. Kid hears of Luffy's recent involvement and uses his power to defeat a bunch of pirates, telling them that the new world is not a place for weaklings. While Capone's ship is sucked into a vortex, Basil is challenged by Brownbeard and Urich discovers an island with thunderstorms. Buggy tearfully reunites with his crew on an unknown island and Mr. 3 delivers a message from the world government. At the Shabati archipelago, Duval and the Flying Fish Riders confront the Copper Pirates as Shaki entrusts the protection of the ship to him. Eventually, the pirates confront Kuma and the world government. While the Star Hat crew all receive Luffy's message, Blackbeard defeats Bonnie and abandons her to be captured by a Kainu. At Marijua, Doflamingo tells a government official that he seemingly killed Moria while in Marineford. However, he does not care about the government's powers, as he is still a pirate. After Chopper was allowed to stay on the island to study the local medical plants, makes a tearful vow to Luffy that he will train intensively. Nami requests Herdas to teach her the weather of the new world, as she wants to help Luffy on his journey to become king of the pirates, while Frankie learns about Vegapunk's inventions and decides to help his captain by acquiring new skills. Ivankov offers to teach Sanji the ways of Nukuma cooking if he can gather 99 recipes from around the kingdom and retain his manhood while doing so. Sanji finally accepts Ivankov's offer and proceeds to fight. Meanwhile, despite Robin's initial reluctance, she finally decides to improve herself by joining the Revolutionary Army. Usopp begins to train with Hercules, and Mihawk, after realizing that Zoro defeated the human drills, finally decides to teach him. As every one of the other Straw Hat pirates are informed that in 2 years from now, they will reunite with Luffy at Shabati, Jinbe thanks Luffy for what he has done to him, vowing to meet again at Fishman Island as they go their separate ways. At Rayleigh's request, Hancock's ship lands on Aruscana, an abandoned island, before she and Luffy also say their goodbye. Beginning his training, Luffy tries to attack a large elephant with Gear Second, but it fails. Rayleigh teaches him the observation haki, a power feeling a person's presence, to avoid the elephant's attack before he knocks it out with armament haki, another technique used as an invisible shield and can render a Logia-type devil fruit user out. When the elephant tries to attack again, Rayleigh finally defeats it using the Conqueror's haki, a rare type of that can only be awakened by some. Luffy promises to Rayleigh that he will stay for the next 2 years to control his haki techniques and begin preparing to reunite with his crew.